The slips behind me, sad to say, they're pretty much the new normal inside the Raukūmara. The rocks are like wheat bix. You get the right amount of water on them and it just turns into like porridge and ends up in the creeks and ultimately down on the beach.
Climate change, extreme weather, and human impact are all major factors to the new environmental norm in Te Tairawhiti. Mai ngā maunga ki ngā moana, ka apu haere. Our whenua is being devoured, our riverbanks consumed, our moana left with the aftermath. He apu whenua, he apu tangata. This series explores the why. Raukūmara pai Maunga, 200,000 hectares of ngahere shared between Ngāti Porou and Whānau-ā-Apanui. Over the last 20 years, huge numbers in pests such as deer and possums has left the Raukūmara on the brink of ecological collapse.
The Raukūmara to us is the umbilical cord to our iwi that sustains us in nourishment. The Raukūmara, it's there to feed us and take care of us.
It's like a tahuhu, the central nervous system. It feeds every system, and the rivers are like the toto, your blood, and the Raukūmara feeds the health of that blood. It filters, you know, that central nervous system that filters everything through your body. That's what the Raukūmara would be to me.
It's extremely significant because the interior of the Raukūmara is what holds this whole landscape behind us together. So the health of that landscape is the health of everything downstream.
In a landscape like Raukūmara, in conservation circles, it's known as the Fjordland of the North. And that's got nothing to do with glaciers and fields and everything. It's just similar terrain. So 70% of the Raukūmara, it's got a slope degree of, 30 degrees or more.
And we come down to Te Ara Tepuna when our ancestors used to traverse through Raukūmara from this side over to Whānau-ā-Apanui and from that side over here. There's the biodiversity, there's the forest itself, there's the identity of our people, and of course that's what's holding those steep mountain ranges together is that ngahere.
What's in there is, it's from bush to sea. The Raukūmara range, it doesn't just finish at our road, it finishes out there. So what happens in there, it ends up out in our moana and down our awas and that's coming from the Raukūmara. So to me, that's the heartbeat. The Raukūmara range is the heartbeat of Te Whānau-ā-Apanui and Ngāti Porou people. And if we're seeing carnage and all of that coming outside of it, then obviously for me there's something going on inside.
I've been doing this mahi for 30 years, and over that time period watched the place go from the Garden of Eden to the empty shell it is now.
Saving the ngahere from complete devastation is currently what iwi are facing. From the canopy, it's quite hard to see, but it's on the ground where the real damage is done. There's virtually no thick bush, no understory on the forest floor. If you look at the history of the Raukūmara, it tells the story of how pest numbers have increased. Introduction of deer and possums, farming, the impact of Cyclone Bola, large-scale forestry, decrease in commercial deer operations, to the current IL crisis, a silent forest with no birdsong.
"30 years ago, I went into the Raukūmara for the first time are to follow Te Ara Tipuna, the trail that goes over to Ōmaio. And the forest was so healthy, so bountiful, full of bird life, thick undergrowth. We would cut our way through. It was really quite a tough journey because the forest was wild and it was still intact. It's a lot different today. I went in and followed almost the same trail over a 6-day period. It was eerie, it was unrecognisable because it was like it was one big pathway. I remembered when I had taken turns to actually use machetes to cut our way through the bracken. There was none of that. But it was the quiet that was the most daunting and thought-provoking aspect, was the quiet, especially in the morning when the birds sing. There was virtually nothing. It might have been a faint bird in the distance.
Oh, yeah, and smack you in the face. It should be dark, it should be wet, and it should be absolutely dense. I shouldn't be able to walk through like I am. I should be smashing my way through, and then you'd just see lots of little babies, thick thing, or mosses. Mosses are really fabulous for holding in that water. So this is an example of not what to look like. Yes, they're still in the same, like 5 steps away from where we were. And like, this is probably common what you see in Raukūmara now, that bare dirt. Not good.
As mentioned, a lot of the ngahere is hard to reach by foot. Kaitiaki Graham Atkins has chopped it into the middle of the ranges for closer inspection of the devastation.
We're in the Raukūmara today, in the shadow of Whānau, beautiful Maunga. We're at the Oronui hut, situated on the banks of the Oronui River, which flows into the Tapu Airo, one of the main tributaries of the Waiapu Awa. We haven't gone too far and already there's plenty to see, so we can see what the deer have done. They're bark stripping all of these are all members of our Caprosma whānau, so this one here is Mānono. They pull the bark off because they're hungry, and if they go right around a tree, it ends up killing them. So yeah, and if you scan around, you can see there's numerous examples of that going on. A lot of people find it hard to make that connection with what deer have done as far as our bird populations, but you can see down here where the deer can reach, they've pulled all the bark off, and so all the leaves are nibbled, and if they keep doing it, it will kill the tree. And so you can see up in here all the ripening berries, and so that's kai for our manu. And so if they take out all of these species, it leaves gaps in the year. All those species that used to make up the understory provided year-round food. They all had their moment in the sun for about a month to 6 weeks, and then another species would start to fruit. This is the podocarp broadleaf forest, and so podocarps are all your emu, kakatia, tōtara, that middle matai that stick out over the top. And the canopy out here consists of tawa is the main canopy species here. So with it being a tawa canopy, tawa only has fruits on it around February, and so they stay on the tree for about a month. Big kai for our kereru. And so it shows you how crucial that understory was for providing birds with kai for the remainder of the year. Even though this might look lush, this understory, you can see it's dominated by our silver ferns. Yeah, the deer don't like eating it, and so it's just going to make that understory recovery a little bit harder. Yeah, so we're in amongst some tutu. Tutu are really, really important in the scheme of things because they're a first coloniser of all the slips, and so we've got some really graphic examples of slips straight across the creek here. These tutu have been heavily browsed, many of them on their last legs. quite a few have already tipped over, so yeah, really important for healing our slips, the old tutu. And they're a non-legume that fixes nitrogen, so they make the soil full of life for the future forest, so really, really important. And you don't see any little ones, and that's where the deer eat them. They're sad to see them looking like this. So yeah, this is what all the tutu should look like. All of these ones out here, they should all be looking like that. The possums have eaten everything else, their favourite species, and they've been forced to eat the tutu. And so that's a sign that there's already been major damage or major changes done to this ngahere. If we look around, you can start to see the place is starting to fall to bits, and so as all these slips contribute to the load coming down these creeks, they raise the bed. And then when that happens, it just means it needs less water to make the river go wide. And so when it eats into the base of the hill, gravity takes over basically. The hill falls down, bringing all the trees with it. And so this little creek behind me, it ends up adding a sediment load to the Waipu.
But despite the dramatic demise of the understory, there are still signs that Raukūmara is holding on.
Oh, here's one. Oh, a little fella. Yeah, so these frogs are as old as New Zealand. They never swum here. Their closest whakapapa is to a frog species over in the Amazon, Brazil. We're so lucky to have them, and you know that they're still here in the Raukūmara. They're a really good indicator of exceptional water quality. They're only a northern North Island species, so you know a taonga that's still managing to cling on in here in the Raukūmara, so very, very lucky.
So that's the current state of our ngahere. In response to the devastation, Raukūmara Maunga was formed. An agreement between Ngāti Porou, Whānau-ā-Apanui and the Department of Conservation to bring back and restore the mana and mauri of the Raukūmara.
For the most part, it's about bringing our whānau along on the journey of restoration, and a big part of that is restoring our people's connection with their tūpuna ngahere.
That's going to take a lot of work and a lot of commitment from all of our communities. But I think an important thing for us, for me as governance, is to be in a place where we're making decisions for ourselves because we have the solutions. And that is why we're doing what we're doing now. Because we finally said we've had enough, we're stepping in, and we're going to take over. And we don't mind doing it with the Department of Conservation, but we will definitely be in the lead.
I've been a hunter, I've hunted for 50 years, you know, like, so I know what it's like to live off the land, but I think there comes a time when we've got to look in the mirror and say to ourselves, well, we're taking more than our fair share. Maybe it's time for us to give back because our ngahere and our Raukūmara, it's just not holding together.
Yeah, look at it, it's beautiful. Who would not want to protect what we love? You're not finding one or two deer, you're finding mobs of deer around here, so yeah, it's got ag now. Yeah.
Since the Raukūmara Maunga program started 2 years ago, kaimahi on both the Ngāti Porou and Apanui sides have been employed in a number of roles, from taiao rangers to deer cullers, to monitoring and controlling pests, to engaging with their local communities so everyone knows what's happening.
Here's our aerial team flying out on their mission this morning. What we did last year is we established monitoring sites in different areas here throughout the Raukūmara, so we could capture the data of presence and absence of the pests. So our ops teams went in, we flew in to different areas and we cut tracks. We marked them We put out tunnels and things to be able to go back in and do a monitor. Those monitoring were ink cards that were put out on wax tags, the ink cards for rats, to see how many rats we had in there, and then wax tags for our possums. What happened though was that our ink cards that was for rat monitoring actually got a smashed by possums in a lot of these areas, as well as the rats, but that's how many possums were in there. The rats didn't even get a chance to get to them.
I scoot around the bush trying to murder predators. Doc calls a tile ranger. It freaked me out to see how bare it is underneath, and learning and knowing what all that means to the ecosystem as it comes down the creeks, as it comes down, runs off the hills, everything. It's not able to contain the water that falls from the sky. It's just falling straight onto the Raukūmaras, which is falling straight into the rivers, which is causing slips because there's dead trees everywhere in that place. I'd like to see how many slips are in there ever since after that last cyclone, you know? There's heaps more in there.
So we do a lot of database collection. So we set trap lines, marking. We do all sorts from water monitoring to 1080 monitoring, track clearing, and yeah, just a lot of mahi that involves data collection. I think coming from a trapping background and just seeing over the years that there is a climate change effect, it sort of opened my eyes, and having a better understanding of conservation, just trying to look at it different rather than from a trapping perspective. I've sort of shed more light into looking deeper and actually feeling what's going on with our whenua and our waterways and that. So for me it was having to partake in the mahi and actually ground myself into being able to look after our lands rather than just treading on it and, you know, doing it for an income.
Yeah, it looks like a horror movie in there. Just a mess.
Because I was one of those people too. I'd only trapped in one area of the Raukūmaras, and even then I didn't really recognise it until I started seeing more and more damage with our waiapu. And then that's when I sort of grounded myself and shit, I've got to do something about it and, you know, start giving back rather than taking from.
A big part of the Maunga team's mahi has been informing the community about the use of 1080 to eliminate the pests.
We have no options, you know. We have to be doing something because, you know, the erosion happening here will just get worse. And where we live, in the lower reaches of the Waiapu, we'll all have to abandon ship and move because all our best soil, our best, the alluvial flats where we all live are all getting buried over or washed out to sea. And so I think that's where the kōrero around the use of 1080 comes in, because it's way too big a problem now, trying to get on top of the old possums out here. And 1080 will provide this ngahere with some much needed respite. We'll give it a breathing space.
I think it's fair to say that there is an expected level of resistance. For me, on my observation so far on the project, is that the resistance is really born of fear of what our people don't know. And because our people love this place, this is their home, they love it as much as we do, and they're fearful that 1080 could be poisoning their home. And so very much valid fears for them to have, and it's just about us being able to provide them with the information and the education so that they can become more comfortable and less fearful of 1080 as a tool to eradicate pests in our ngahere.
Before I came into this space, I was anti-1080. That was through a lack of knowledge and knowing what the Raukūmara needs, because we don't have another tool to fix it up at the moment. Since I've started this job, it's made me realise that it needs a bit of medicine.
I wanted to show you this area because this is something we want to show our people, why we're using 1080, the steepness. And 70–75% of the Raukūmara is more than 30 degrees. And this is why. So this is one of the reasons why we've run a trap line through here. So we'll trap this area. But it's also to show our people why we're using 1080 and how steep it is in there and the hazards that it creates. And we can't send people in there, it's just too dangerous. And some of it's even steeper than this.
Even if we had thousands of foot soldiers, we wouldn't be able to address the crisis in time. 1080 was the only option, given the point of time that we're in and given the state of the forest at this point in time.
1080 has already been dropped on the Apanui side, with alarming numbers of possums already being found. The Ngāti Porou side is yet to start, due to the extreme weather conditions.
So when the 1080 drop come along, we had massive numbers of possums, you know, that's like a beaver's dam, you know, it just broke. So the first flood, it's like the dam just busted open. Now we've got possums all over the beaches. You know, so that was a bit of a hard one to swallow. So our immediate response was to clean the beaches up. I mean, the numbers of possums that come out on the beaches were huge. I mean, it's just, you know, we're talking numbers of up to 500 to 700 possums, you know, like, unfortunately, we lost a few dogs through that as well. You know, a few local dogs. So, yeah, we had all our signs out, but no one wanted to listen to the signs. It's a whole new thing, so it's not the nicest place to be when you have to turn up at somebody's doorstep and tell them that their dogs have passed on because they've eaten some possums that have come from the Raukūmara with 1080 in them, you know. Standing there waiting for a smack in the nose, that's not the easiest job to, you know, but I mean, you know, we're the front line, so, you know, you've got to take the shots and it is what it is, but if I was asked to use 1080 again, yeah, I wouldn't hesitate. I'm so happy for our ngahere. It was scary, don't get me wrong. It was scary. You know, it's the first time for us. We're learning. And it was scary, but now I look in the hills and I know that, you know, the Māori can breathe.
I think with what happened with possums coming out after our first drop out of the awas and like en masse, really tells that story of how many pests, how many possums there are actually in the Raukūmara. To me, they're like kitus running around. We've gone back in since the first drop to do a couple of the post-monitoring, and the monitoring's come back with nothing. The Māori of that place has a chance now, and that's what our mihi is.
Oh, we're so grateful for Apanui, and we feel for them. They had to go first, but they're just giving us all the learnings, just how to manage the post mahi of this. Even Doc is learning as well, and they've been, our Doc whānau have been in this for a long time, and just seeing the numbers that come out in the front, how our rivers work, like the way they've changed, the amount of water that comes out of the Raukūmara.
Yeah, I think it's really important to share that the consideration of how we drop 1080, when we drop 1080, where we drop 1080, it's probably the most frequented conversation on the project. And we want to make sure that we do that the right way, because the sustainability of restoration efforts really hangs on us being able to apply 1080 again in the future. So we have been able to apply 1080 over a significant amount of ngahere. We still have a significant amount of ngahere to treat.
So while 1080 has been applied to the Apanui side, it's still yet to be applied to the Ngāti Porou side of the ngahere, and that's due to all the severe weather that has impacted the coast recently.
Those challenges and delayed is everything that we've seen here on the coast and the resilience of the locals, you know. It's been Gabrielle, it's been some other storms and other events that have washed out our access roads to this load site. We're repeatedly repairing those. We first started looking at opportunities for delivering the bait over the ranges back in about September or October last year. So it's been a long long wait trying to find those perfect windows. What we're after is an opportunity to have a couple of really good days like today to deliver the bait with the helicopters safely and effectively. But then we also want to ensure that there's a nice fine period afterwards without any rainfall, so that those baits have got the best opportunity to do the job they're there for, which is targeting the possums. This operation is targeting about 20,000 hectares. That operation was pre-fed about 6 or 8 weeks ago. We pre-fed that same area. So 20,000 hectares is a pretty massive area. We're treating it with 4 kgs a hectare. So that's quite a high sowing rate. And that's really important because there is so many pests out there. Really high possum numbers, really high rat numbers, you know. So we need to ensure we get that mix really right, that we're putting the right amount of bait out to target the right levels of pests. Over the next period, the kaimahis from the Maunga project will be spending a lot of time in the rivers and waterways, monitoring those, looking for carcasses and things like that to try and limit any downstream effects that might happen. We then look to the next weather window and we start planning what the rest of the operation look like.
So, with the Maunga team on the ground, tracking and monitoring the application of 1080, things are looking up for the Raukūmara.
This is the 1080 drops. We've picked up a kiwi in the hauputa on our cameras. That was exciting for our iwi. We've always known kiwis to be there. We've just never seen one on camera. And after, 2-3 weeks after the 1080 drop, it's drinking the water. I mean, how exciting is that? We've picked up feel in the Hauparapara River. I mean, nobody was talking about feel. You know, we've got footage of these taonga species that are coming out, that are not getting chased by the stoats, that are not getting chased by the rats. The takeaway is massive.
I do have hope because we're the first ones to actually put our best foot forward and to do the best that we can. And it's for our mokos and our tamarikis. Hopefully that we can revive it so they get to live it.
I feel like our kaupapa has quite high hopes in what we are aiming on trying to do. And yeah, for me, it's looking like we're going to be in there for a long time.
It's giving back to our whenua, to our lands there, because we've taken too much from them and pretty much given our land to beef and sheep to occupy it. They're not going to occupy it. So, it's up to us as kaitiaki and tangata whenua. We should be the ones that should be able to look after it and sustain it.
The dream for me is that with the Raukūmara, it was back healthy again, Maori restored, functioning as it should be, handling heavy rain and whatever the climate throws at it. And it's our own that are managing and doing the do, that are getting all that knowledge back, that mātauranga about how this place used to tick.
Ko te reo, te take.